In the Know, a radio program talking to the newsmakers in Ogle, Lee, DeKalb counties and beyond, keeping you in the know. Here's your host, Charles Van Horn.
Good morning and happy Sunday. Another edition of In the Know. Today we are joined in studio by a couple of special guests, Rochelle celebrities. Safe to call you guys that?
Yes.
Yes. Tom McDermott, Rochelle City Council member, author, designated historian of the Rochelle Flagg Township Museum, and Terry Dickow, vice president of the Rochelle Flagg Township Museum Board. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I was talking to you two, by the way.
Well, I just didn't.
You paused for a moment.
I didn't
there.
want to walk over anybody here. You know, the one mic thing. Remember?
Thank you for being here. Of course, the Rochelle Flagg Township Museum. If you haven't had a chance to go there, an amazing place to find out all about the hub city, how the community has grown, their humble beginnings, some of the great achievements that have taken place in town. And there is now a convenient way to put the museum in your pocket a little bit anyway, right?
Well, absolutely. As we've long said, when you read it, it's history.
Yeah.
And now it is.
Yeah, there you go.
The museum, for a fundraiser, has come out with a book of 52 stories.
I'm holding up a copy right now.
Well, yes.
It's very helpful for the radio.
Yeah, you can look at it on your radio. And the hope is that it so far has been well accepted. If it keeps selling, it's just a little fundraiser, something to put a little money in the bank. Museum's on a very, very stringent budget, if you will, runs about $50,000 a year is all. And if it wasn't for the support of people coming into the museum, dropping off donations, and hopefully this book sale, it gets pretty tough to pay the bills.
One of the things I really I like about this book is Tom has taken people from the past and made them come alive. I've been in Rochelle for 50 years, so I'm kind of a newcomer to the community. Tom's been here his entire 108 years. But, I picked up this, I started reading again through this book, columns that he has done in the past and stories. And there's people in here that they could make movies out of.
Yeah.
Especially World War II veterans. Dale Gilbert, who survived in a Japanese prisoner of war camp for 3 or 4 years. And it's just amazing that these people lived among us, and Tom's kind of brought them back to life.
Yeah. So, Tom, what was sort of the reasoning to get this book together? I know you talked about it being a fundraiser, but, coming up with an idea for a fundraiser is one thing. Writing a book is another.
It all kind of fell into place by accident. And I was out at the newspaper, the Rochelle News Leader, our local newspaper, always shop local first. And Jeff Helfrich said, could you do a couple articles for the News Leader?
Yeah.
We've got some space we'd like to get filled in, and we're looking for some stories. So I said, well, I might be able to come up with 5 or 6 stories, but I'm not going to be a lifelong, contributor. I don't have that many stories in my head.
How long ago was this?
2021, and so far 81 stories later. so once the volume of stories increased to the point where it became a viable option, Jan DeVore, the museum director, said, could we possibly use your stories, and make a book, start on the fundraiser concept. Since then, I just hand the stories over to the folks at the museum, and I think 27 proofreaders later, and every comma's been moved 5 times. They cleaned it up quite a bit, and here it is.
For sale at the museum. You can find copies of this new book and also online. Yes. And there will be a big book signing event happening today between 1 and 2 o'clock at the museum. So looking forward to that. It's a pretty good-sized book. Lots of stories are in there. And if I could just take that copy from you for a second. Looking at the pages, 114 odd pages here for it. And a very distinguished jacket cover photo.
A lot of people are buying it just for the photo on the back.
Yeah,
I have to say that. There's been a lot of comment
Some
framing
people,
and
yes, using them for a dartboard.
Yeah.
I've heard that a lot. The book is $20.
Yeah.
And I want to point out every cent goes to the museum.
Yes.
Tom's getting nothing out of this except the adulation of a community.
Yeah.
We
my
also
picture on the back.
Yeah.
we also need to thank want to thank the Flagg Township Board. They provided funding to print the book.
Yeah.
So when we're getting $20 for a book, that's $20 that the museum's getting. We don't have any printing expenses because Flagg Township very graciously and generously donated the printing cost.
And let's talk a bit about Rochelle history. When you started off on the stories, I'm sure you had 5 or 6 things, like you said, where at the top of your head, you're like, oh, I could get that, no problem, no problem. Was there something while you were researching, looking for the next thing, when you were having a little bit of writer's block, and you went down that rabbit hole and you found a great Rochelle story that you didn't know about, that you didn't even realize existed, and it turned into something much bigger than you thought it would?
There's several. So, I mean, obviously, the easy ones.
Yeah.
You know, we had the Thomas Burke lynching. Rochelle was known as Hangtown. We were Lane before we were Rochelle, so we lynched somebody. Lane got to be kind of associated with a hanging, so we changed the name to Rochelle. So the hanging obviously was easy. Well, we had a hanging because the town of Rochelle there was an arson or two. Mm-hmm. They burned it down a couple times. So 2 huge fires around the end of the Civil War time. So those were easy stories. But after the first 5 or 6, like I say, it became more problematic. Jeff's going to want a story in another couple of weeks. I better do. So I've always been interested in the military and such like that. I never was in the military. I don't know if I could be in the military because that stuff just scares me to death. But I've always admired the folks that were willing to go and put their life on the line. So I went through obituaries, which if you go to the museum on the electronic files, you can type in war and it will give you every article that we've scanned about everybody that was in Civil War, First World War, Second World War, every place, So I went through and started reading just the obituaries, and it would mention so-and-so. As Terry said, some of these could be made into the movies. So I saw Stanley Fell.
Yeah.
He was on the USS Juneau, which if you do war, if you don't do war, he's gone. I mean, Mr. Fell is gone. Well, they made a movie, the Fighting Sullivan Brothers. Yeah. They were on the Juneau.
Yeah, that was the guy down below. Family. That was the family with all the siblings were on the same boat.
5 boys on the same boat. Boat was torpedoed and sank. Well, Stanley Fell from Rochelle was in the boiler room of that boat.
Wow.
So the same story that they went through, a local boy graduate from our high school, played on our football teams. He was on that boat also.
Local connections.
Absolutely. And Charles Barrows, Halsey's Typhoon, the USS Spence, Rochelle boy.
Yeah.
So they've written books about Halsey's Typhoon, where all the ships were lost. They'd been through a big battle, the Mariana Trenches, big success. We're moving on. We're just going to push now. We're pushing hard against the Japanese. And most of our fleet gets wiped out by 76 aircraft lost.
Wow.
and several boats sunk in Halsey's Typhoon. So what we tried to do then was take the local aspect, and tie it in with an actual, if you will, small history lesson with that. And my idea was, so it's a story that if you wanted to talk to, you had a 15-year-old. I've got a 15-year-old granddaughter, hates to read. Hates to read. We started working on this book, and she started helping me do some of the research, and now she's reading this book because the stories are only 2 pages, 3 pages long.
Yeah.
So you can read a story in 6 to 10 minutes, and get a little bit of local flavor and a little bit of world history by accident.
And these
it's like the sugar coating on the medicine. You can get the medicine, the history in,
And the connecting thread in this book will be Rochelle, but that doesn't mean that you have to be a Rochelle person to appreciate the stories that are told.
No, true. And we spread it out to it. I like to at the museum board meetings refer to it as Rochelle in the suburbs. And by suburbs for Rochelle, I mean you come here to shop at our Walmart.
Yeah,
because Ashton's got some stories. Stewart.
Yeah,
there are people all over. That immediate area? What's
the oldest story you have? How far back do you go? What's the oldest tale that you tell?
Well, and it's in this book. I mean, because we're looking now at possibly a second
I say you're
book.
already acting like there's going to be another one.
We wrote 81 stories.
Wow!
And when you're printing or having a book printed, if you're not ordering thousands of books.
Yeah.
The price per book is pretty large. So we could have made an 80-story book.
Yeah.
Well, now all of a sudden the printing costs are going to be $30, $35 a book.
Yeah.
Well, if I want to make money for the museum, I've got to charge you $45, $50.
Yeah.
That boat's not going to float. I mean, we got a lot of good people here, but we got a lot of good people that just don't have $50 to throw into a book. So it was a conscious decision to try to, I mean, at our board meetings, we were talking, it's going to be this much. And it was a conscious decision to kind of cut the book in half, if you would. One story a week. I refer to it as a Wednesday night, glass of wine, read a story, think about Rochelle. But it was just, we tried to keep it small. So in this one, we go back to the 1853s with the first settlers.
Yeah.
The DeLass Hotel, which is
Driscoll's.
The Driscoll gangs. I mean, so we have those in this book. If this book succeeds about this time next year, hopefully we can be back out, and we'll get into Chief Shabna and Black Hawk and some people that were here even before.
What's the most recent story in the book?
I really couldn't say who's exactly the most recent. I do, for people my age, they'll remember Byford Kyler. So some of the World War II stories, because we weren't in World War II, but Byford Kyler was a teacher at Rochelle High School.
Yeah.
And if you went to Rochelle High School, you knew Byford Kyler whether you took his class or not, and 90% of the people took his class. He also shot down 3 airplanes in World War II. He was a pilot and accomplished some pretty amazing things. If you knew Mr. Kyler and talked to him at all or sat through his class for a year, you would have never known he was in the military.
And that's one of the things I thought was really great about the book. These are people that some of us, not me necessarily, but a lot of Rochelle people knew them, but they didn't know what they went through. I'd known Byford Kyler for years.
Yep.
And he was not like what you would consider a hero. I mean, he did not come across as a hero.
Yeah.
But here's a guy up there in the air fighting Japanese planes off of an aircraft carrier and getting 3 of them.
Yep.
That is amazing to hear about. You can find all of this in Tom McDermott's new book, Stories, available now at the Rochelle Flagg Township Museum. You can get copies of it there. And again, big book signing today between 1 and 2 o'clock there at the museum, Tom. You'll be signing the copies of the book. So how about that? Plus, you can order it online, too, by going to the museum's website. Any of the retailers in town going to be having the book on their shelves?
Not at this point.
Will you be peddling it on street corners, maybe at the stoplight, hanging out?
Well, I do have a cup that says "Help put this boy through college."
Yeah.
And I sit in front of. I'm going to go sit at Walmart at the little exit and entering lane because I'm out of gas.
You've been removed from a couple of city council meetings because they thought you were an urchin.
Well, that's it. Somebody give him a biscuit and send him to the corners.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. Good luck with your book tour, and don't forget today at the museum, big book signing 1 o'clock. It all starts. You'll be there, Tom, signing copies of stories at the Flagg Township Museum. Of course, 518 4th Avenue here in Rochelle. Next stop, I think New York City for you guys.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having
Charles,
us.
for having us.
Thank you for listening to this week's In the Know. The program returns next week at this time with another great conversation with someone from your community.